Hi everybody, I'm here today with our special guest is Cassandra Howard. She is a breast cancer thriver and her fashion is always extraordinary. So I'm gonna give you a look at what she has, what she's wearing today. As you can see, she's smiling as usual. San, how are you today?
I cannot complain. Today is a good day.
So let me just start off, because I know I'm always talking to you about your fashion, because you just, I've never seen a day where you weren't, you weren't all. Is that something important to you?
That is, my mother always said, at least dress decent, even if you don't feel like it. Dress up to par, because you never know who you may encounter.
Right. So how do you put together your outfits? I mean, is that something you?
Probably ever since I was younger, I could probably say I'm like a little barber shopper, and I just put it together. Nothing too expensive, well, really nothing expensive. I just try to make it simple and elegant as best as I can.
So let's start. Tell me about where you grew up at, like the city and the state. Where'd you grow up at?
Erie, PA.
Okay, and what part of Erie did you grow up in?
The Franklin Terrace.
And can you tell everybody, like, what was it like growing up in Franklin Terrace?
So the Franklin Terrace is also known as the John Horan Apartments. So it's the project area. That's where we live. My mother had 5 of us, and she ended up having to move to the project. So it's like on the east side, in between other project areas. It was a pretty good neighborhood area. Then things start to change over time.
Okay, to survive in a neighborhood like that, is there like fights, things like that's gonna happen in the neighborhood, or do people pretty much get along?
Yes, they did, and our house was probably like the community house. So we really didn't have problems with people. It was different nationalities out there, but more blacks and whites. Then over the years, it became more diverse.
Okay, all right. So tell me about your family, your parents. I know you just said you have 5 siblings. Did you grow up with both parents? Did you grow up with just your mother, just your father? Tell me about that.
So my mother was a single mother. Her and my father co-parent. So my father was active in my life also. My mother was 40 when she had me. My father was 48. And I got 5 siblings. That's older. I was the youngest out of all of them.
Okay. So what did you learn from your mother that you would say still sticks with you? Like, what's something important that your mother taught you that I still use this even as a mother myself?
Always treat people how you want to be treated.
The golden rule.
She always said, treat people how you want to be treated. You never know who you may encounter. And that always stuck with me, so now I instill that in my sons always.
Okay. So tell me about where you went to high school at. Where'd you go to high school at in Erie?
Central High, where I'm working currently.
And what was that like? What was that? Tell me what it was like at Erie High, or Central High.
It was packed. It was a lot of kids in my graduating class. We probably was the 3rd or the 4th class that graduated from there. So I took cosmetology there for my 4 years.
Did you end up with a certificate?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And I did not do hair after I graduated. I had a good time in high school, me and my friends. High school was good in the beginning, but then I ended up losing my father a couple months before I was about to graduate.
Okay. Did that kind of make ending of high school kind of bad for you that happened, or?
That did, because he died in March.
Okay.
And I stopped going to school for a couple months.
Right.
But then my family and friends helped me, was doing my work, helped me with it. I ended up going back a couple weeks before graduation, and I ended up getting my diploma.
Great. So I know you're a mother. How many children do you have yourself?
I have a 21-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Okay. When did you become a mother? Like, how old were you? A teenage mother? When did you become a mother?
I was 23, and I was moved out of my mom's house at 18, and I had my son when I was 23, and then 41.
Okay. So your first child, were you and the father dating at the time, or what?
Oh yeah, we were still together until he ended up being incarcerated.
Okay.
And we was actually engaged. A lot of people know, like my friends and close family members knew, like we was actually engaged all the way up to time, like he was incarcerated, even years after that.
Right. So so he wasn't physically there during the time when the your son was growing up. Like he wasn't in town. He was incarcerated. But I know that you felt like it was important to keep him involved. How did you do that?
So we still had a relationship. Me and him still was tight. We still was friends. So what we did, well, what I did constantly was make sure I did the visits. I made sure I did the phone calls. I made sure that he was active mentally, like verbally. He wasn't there physically, but in a way he was, because I still was doing those visits for 17 years, so he knew who his father was. So to make sure they had that relationship and that bond.
How often were the visits?
I probably was doing maybe once a month. It all depends on if they had him on this side of Pennsylvania. Sometimes it was a little harder when he was on the further away, especially with a baby. And then some visits wasn't as pleasant. Sometimes the COs would treat the family members as their inmates also. So it wasn't always pleasant, this journey.
Right. So what are some things the father was able to do with your son to, like, what were some things he did with him?
So he sent them books constantly. So whenever he sent them books, my son always would have to, they would have to do a dialogue, like, what did you think about this book? What did you think about that? So he made sure he stayed on it. He made sure he was asking him questions about everything that was going on, making sure that he was staying on the right path. He was doing as best as he could being incarcerated.
Right. So a lot of people would not do what you did. Like I mean, a lot of women or whoever was the main parent would not have did that. Why did you feel that was important to keep doing this, like keeping your son involved with his father, even though he was incarcerated?
Because I know I really couldn't do it by myself, being out there. Like, it was important for me to make sure they had that relationship. Even though he wasn't out here, I still wanted to know who his father was, and we still was friends. So I felt like it was important because he could give them those aspects of a man, because he was out here on the streets for a majority of his life. So he could tell them things that I couldn't tell him, being a man, because I'm not a man.
Right. Are you and him still close?
Oh yeah,
today?
we're still good friends. We still talk. He still checks on me, so, and he's still involved with his son. So we're still good friends.
Right. So that's pretty awesome, I think, for you that you had to did that. Can you tell me, give me some advice for young mothers living in Erie today or in the world? Can you give us some young mothers some advice right now?
I would definitely say you have to be just the best person you can be. Especially as a mother, you have to realize there are little eyes looking at you. So you need to do the best and be the best that you can be. Nobody's not perfect, but just do your best and just treat people accordingly from my aspect.
Right. So what was it like having, how many years is it between the two?
19 years.
19 years between the two. What was that like, having a child, like, 19 years after your...
It was a shocker. I was like in disbelief, like, hold on, I'm 41. And I'm pregnant? Yeah, I was in shock for a minute, like I didn't think I could have any more kids.
So has that been like joyful for you? I know it's been...
It's been a blessing and a miracle, because the time he came and everything that happened during and after my pregnancy with him. So it was a blessing and a miracle that he came when he did.
So let's talk about what do you do for a living? I know you said you earned a cosmetology degree, but you don't do hair. No. What do you do for a living?
I'm the secretary at the high school at Erie High. I've been working for the school district for 17 years. So I started off as a secretary, then I went to a teacher aide, then I went to a librarian, then I went back to secretary. So I was doing many jobs in the district. Everything but a teacher and a superintendent. Right.
Which some of us like me felt like you'd have been really good as a principal or something like that.
Yeah, they need somebody like me.
So tell for our audience out there, what is like your daily, what is it like as a secretary or administrative assistant, I believe you called it before. What is it like? What's your daily routine like?
It's definitely hard because, not really so much hard, but the kids have a lot of stuff on their minds and on their plates. The kids come and talk to me about everything that's going on in their life. So it's like my job, what I'm getting paid for, is secretary, but it's like I'm a counselor, a mother, an advisor, a mentor with their children. Like, it's sometimes kind of hard because the stories you hear with the children is sad, it is depressing. Like, you don't know really what these kids are going through.
Right. So what do you normally? You're answering phones. You're doing stuff for the principal. What do you normally do on the job that you're being paid for?
I'm answering phones, helping the principals, helping the teachers, getting cussed out by parents, very disrespectful parents, so it's really not an easy job. Some days is a little struggle right now with me returning back to work. Some days I'm a little weak, some days I'm a little stronger, but I'm back.
Right. So, why do you feel like you're important in the building you work in? Why are you important to the kids, to the teachers, whoever? Why do you feel like you're?
I feel like because I'm helping making that building run. I may not be in the class teaching, but everything else, the secretaries have to keep it together. Like, we're really the glue. We may not teach the kids, but we're still involved and we're dealing with everybody that's attached to the kids, to where teachers are only dealing with the kids and sometimes parents. We're dealing with everybody that's attached to them.
Right. Anybody that comes in the building, you have to deal with.
Any type of services or anything with the kids.
Right. For anybody out there who may want to pursue a career in what you're doing as a secretary, what's the schooling like for that? What did you have to do to become?
So I only went to a 9-month course through Northwest. It was a GCAT program where the Erie Rise is. So I did that for 9 months, but technically you really just need to know computer skills, because you really don't need no schooling for what I'm doing. Just computer skills, basic computer skills, being able to type, answer phones, deal with people. That's basically what I do.
Okay. So in 2020, you had some news from your doctor.
Yes.
Can you tell us what your doctor told you in 2020?
So right after I had my baby, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So the whole time I was pregnant, I had cancer, I didn't know. So I ended up going to the doctors, like, hey, I still got this knot up under my arm. My baby's 5 months. They're like, oh, it's just nothing. Then I went back, and then that's when I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer.
Okay. So when you were you like sick? Did you feel sick or anything? I know you said you had a knot under your arm, but
that's it.
That's all that you have.
I only had a knot up under my arm, no other signs or symptoms to where they tell you to look for leakage or anything else. I had none of those signs. It was just a little knot, which originally my doctor misdiagnosed me. He thought it was a hair bump.
So when they diagnose you, what do? They do like blood tests, or how do they?
So I had to get another mammogram. Had to get a 3D sonogram. Then I got the biopsy, and that's when you get the biopsy, that's when it comes back and tells you what stage it is, what grade it is.
Okay. So what was going through your mind when you initially, when the doctor told you that, hey, we need to talk to you, this is what's going on? What was going through your mind?
I was sick to my stomach because the only thing I could think about was like, I have to be here for my children. Of course, I didn't know too much about breast cancer. I knew people that had passed away. I didn't know much, but my thing was, I have to be here for my children. I have to fight. Like, these are my reasons for living, is my children. So, of course, it was anxiety, it was depression, it was hurt, but I knew I had to stay positive because I always believe, like, how you think affects on how you will feel.
You're right. I just told somebody something like that. I was at this store and the cash register said, "Oh, I'm terrible at doing this," and I said, "Well, as you think you are, that's what you really are." So that's kind of like what you just said, you know. So once you had been diagnosed with breast cancer, what are some things you did to keep yourself like encouraged? Like, because I know you had to have some thoughts of like, so you're talking about being here for my kids. So obviously you were thinking about dying, right?
Exactly.
So what are some things you did to keep yourself encouraged?
I had to make sure I stayed in my word. I had to make sure I was just praying even more. Even some days I was crying, I was depressed, but I knew I had to stay positive because I always felt like, okay, if I feel like I'm gonna die, I probably will die. So my thing was, I always called myself Cassandra the Conqueror because I was like, I'm going to win, I'm going to win. I still got up, dressed, like I was going somewhere.
Right. So you got up and dressed?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So I still was going through the motions, still trying to make sure I was looking presentable, going through everything I was. It was kind of rough because then everything started taking place.
Right. So what's a day like? Did you have like bad days, good days, as far as the way you felt when you were going through this? What was that like?
Oh, definitely some bad days and good days. When I started doing chemo, I think mentally I'm like, okay, my hair came out. So I started making like drastic changes. I was still weak, but the thing is, going through chemo, I was seeing people where they couldn't walk, they couldn't talk. God still was carrying me on a pillow because I still was able to get my baby dressed, take them to school. Some days I was weak, some days I couldn't. My family and friends helped out. So they was taking them. I was still driving myself to chemo. I still was driving myself to radiation. Mentally, it had took a toll on me because I still had that in my mind, like, sometimes people, no matter what, they can still die. So I'm like, I need to start getting everything in order so in case something happens, my children are good.
Right.
But then I had to keep remembering, like, that's going to be on the back burner. Like, I got to make sure I do everything so I can just fight for them.
Right. So what are some of the treatments like when people talk about chemo? What is chemo really like? What is that like?
So they basically flush kind of like a poison through your body to kill the cancer. So
Okay.
I had a lumpectomy and had a breast reduction before I did the chemo. So I didn't get no mastectomy because the mastectomy would have been removal of both breasts. So what they did was just gave me a breast reduction, and then I started the chemo. So that's when, like, basically they flush all the cancer, supposedly get all the cancer out of you, anything that they didn't remove from the surgery.
Okay.
So I had 5 months of that, and then I had a month, almost 2 months of radiation, to where the radiation just, it was basically like a beam on my right side where the cancer was, because I had cancer in 3 spots. So I had just like the radiation on that. So then that ended up creating burns. So like my whole skin on this side was burnt, peeling off. Definitely weakness, and before I even started chemo, it was 3 days, I ended up getting COVID. Didn't know. I'm like, oh, it's probably my asthma.
Right.
So I ended up going to the hospital, ended up having COVID in the hospital for 4 days because it started forming blood clots. So this was 3 days before I was about to start chemo.
Wow.
So I wasn't going to go because I'm thinking like it's just my asthma, but the doctors was saying it's a good thing that I went because I wouldn't have been able to fight the COVID with the chemo.
Okay.
So definitely some weak days, some
Right.
good days, some
Right.
bad days.
Right. So what is your status now as far as with the breast cancer and stuff like that?
Well, since I finished both of them, I'm considered cancer free. So next year, I'll be in remission basically. So everything looks good right now. So it's a blessing I'm here to do this interview with you.
Right. It's awesome. Glad you're here. So any advice for someone going through the same thing right now? Somebody who's just got diagnosed, somebody who's going through it right now, any type of cancer or a tough situation, like life and death situation. What's your advice for them?
My advice is you have to definitely stay in the Word. Some people might believe in God, they might not, but you have to stay positive throughout it all. Anything that's toxic, negative, you have to remove those. Whether it's people, places, or situations, you have to remove those, because if you don't, things could definitely turn out worse than what they is. So I definitely did that throughout my journey. I started removing anything that was toxic or bad energy. Family, friends, it didn't matter what it was. It's just you have to. So my advice is definitely remove that right there. Stay positive, stay in the Word, for my advice to women, definitely get your mammograms. Definitely, like, even as 30, 20, like, women are being diagnosed younger and younger. And then black women for sure, like, we have to be adamant about our health. If we are not our own advocates, nobody will advocate for you but you.
Right.
So that's probably the best advice I can give. That's what I did on my journey.
So that's awesome. And sometimes, moving away from, we thank you for sharing that with us about your life. I know that you like to dance too sometimes and have a good time, even after, and maybe during when you were going through some of this stuff. Tell us about why is that such an important part of your life, like having a good time and doing stuff like that.
I just feel like that's important because that's always been me and my character, like just staying happy through it all, through the midst of it all. I feel like dancing definitely helps with stress. I just love to dance. I just love to be as positive as I can be. Sometimes I can be taken out of character when need be. But
no, not you.
When
Never.
need be. I'm not perfect by no means. But I think just staying positive and just happy is just who I am. That's how my mother and father was. That's like how my siblings are. Like, we have different fathers, but for the most part, my siblings are very happy. My older sister, that was kind of like my mentor, and my mother, they both passed away. So, and it was just always happy and pleasant. And when they passed away, it was like both of their funerals was packed, and everybody always just had good things to say about them. Like, I want people to remember me when I pass away, like, hey, she always was a good person.
Right. So I notice sometimes when you post things on social media, you'll get 500 comments. But I also know, like, you're a person that tells people how it is. You know what you get with you. It's not like, oh, one day saying this one day sees that way. It's this way, and you know that. So, but a lot of people still like you. Why do you think you still have that love from people?
I think because what I give out is what you see is what you get. So they can't say, hey, she's fake, she's phony, she's messy. Like, people can tell me stuff they don't have to worry about it getting back. And then I always just try to be happy and give people positive affirmations. So I think that's probably why most of the people like me, like, because the energy I give.
Right.
Like, I always try to give people good energy when I come around.
Right. So before we end here, let's talk about your fashion a little bit. I know you got your purse here. Tell me how many, if you had to put a number on, like, the pair of shoes and boots you own, how many do you own?
Probably over 200. Over 200.
Now, is there a certain style that you like, or?
The type of style I like is what I can afford. Something within my means. Long as it's cute. I don't try to get all outrageous and gotta get the latest. No. I just try to make sure it's something that I can afford. Because sometimes when people have like all these name brands, some people be intimidated by people with name brands because they feel like, hey, I want that, I need that. No, that's not me. No.
Right, so you're not trying to keep up with everybody else.
No, I can't keep up with the Joneses. I look just as nice with the no name brand.
So I'm looking at your purse there, it looks like it matches your outfit and your shirt. Now, is that important, or did everything got it?
You know what, usually it do have to match to the T. This one I just happened to be carrying it around for a couple days, but normally I would have like probably maybe a pink or a cream purse to match, but I just end up grabbing this one because I had it for a couple days. But necessarily, like, when you go out and you're going somewhere, I think it should be important. That's just me. Some people is just, they just keep their same purse, whatever.
Right.
I probably got over 80 purses. I have a lot of purses too. Yeah.
So give us a fashion tip. Give us some fashion tips, I'm saying.
Number one, make sure that you can afford it within your means. Don't try to be like nobody else. Two, make sure you feel good in it. Like, I think you really need to feel good in the stuff that you wear. Like, I feel like I look good, so I got to make sure I don't put a lot of effort into when I'm wearing things. I'm thinking like, hey, if this looks cute, I'm gonna put it on.
Right.
It might not be what somebody else like. You have to dress for the part for yourself. You can't dress for nobody else.
And before we leave, because I know some kids love you. Like these kids you work with really love you. They come to you. They, like you said, they're a counselor to them. say something positive to the kids before we leave.
Definitely do right by people. Definitely have respect for yourself and other people. What I always tell the kids, you just really have to just be the best that you can be. Like, you can't be nobody else but yourself. Definitely do good to people, because it will come back on you. I tell children constantly, like, you can't expect to go do something bad and don't think it's not going to come back on you, because it will. I'm a firm believer in you reap what you sow, and what goes around always comes around. So always try to tell the children, you just have, no matter what they're going through, just stay encouraged.
Right. So any last comments you want to make today?
I want to thank you for having me for this interview.
Well, thank you for coming. Always great to talk to you.
I feel like I'm a movie star because I'm with you, because you're very known in the community, and congratulations on your position.
Thank you. Thank you.
You definitely know you're going to do well.
Thank you. And I'll be calling on you. You know, I always ask you for help when I need it.
I'll be ready. So I know I can follow this lead, like, oh, I might have to get on Cal's.
Yeah.
You know I got your back.
Right. But we'd like to thank, today we had an interview with Miss Cassandra Howard, well-known member of the Erie community. She calls herself a breast cancer thriver. Not survivor, breast cancer thriver. And her position is that I believe she's the lead secretary at Erie High School in Erie, PA. And she does a great job with that, and everybody loves her. She's also just a generally fun person who likes to have fun. And we're so glad to have her here. Thank you, Sam, for your time today. Thank you.